Hello everybody, Andy here again. Right, so probably a subject that I've tackled before at some time or another. I must have done by now, but the sort of continuing and sort of emerging influence of the internet over our lives in some ways, I think. Look, a few different examples that I want to relay, but one in particular from this week, the American election that's happened this week, and I don't want to go on and on about that. I'm sure everyone's thoroughly bored with it in lots of ways now, but some of the things that have come out of that, I sort of saw something on the BBC, one of the blogs that I subscribe to there, one of the sort of internet blogs, and they were talking about the way that Barack Obama has used the internet and is certainly using the internet now. One thing he's done is he's put a site up there called change.gov, I believe it is, where you can go on there and it's showing you what he's doing and what the process is and where everything's going, etc. You can apply for jobs for his administration and you fill out an online application form. So I know other people have done this sort of thing before, but I wonder whether we're moving into a sort of a new age, politically maybe in one way, but also with the sort of internet savvy sort of way that people are dealing with this. People are realising that we are turning a corner in this now. People are going to be, people even in very, very important places are starting to embrace the internet. I'm not just saying taking notice of it and maybe paying lip service to it, but actually using it. I mean, an example over here, Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister, has got a channel, got Downing Street channel on YouTube. And he's had a thing going on where he's been getting people to sort of send in video questions. And I know I was actually invited to do it and never got round to it. And I know other people have done it, and he sort of answered some of those questions. Now, with the best will in the world, I do think that Gordon Brown's probably been pushed into that a little bit. I'm not knocking him by any means, but I don't get the impression that he's maybe quite so internet savvy as some other people. Barack Obama being the case in point. Another thing with Obama recently is famously he sort of released some photographs which you may have seen on the internet, you may have seen them in the press, the TV, etc., of the election night when he was backstage looking at the results with his friends, with his family, and all that sort of people around him. And he didn't just sort of release them to the press, he put them on his own Flickr page. And I went and had to look at that, and I thought it was quite amazing that Barack Obama's got his own Flickr page, and he sort of posted lots of different photographs, those and ones from earlier in the campaign and that as well. And you go to his profile and it looks as though he's written his own bit, and it even tells you his interests and his favourite bands and favourite films and things like that. Now, I can't imagine many sort of world leaders doing that. And this sort of leads me on to another point, because one of the things that I've read, and I actually noticed myself actually, the election the other day, what usually happens with elections in my country, in your country, wherever you are probably, you're sitting there and you're watching the results come in, if you can be bothered to stay up late at night. And traditionally we've sat in front of the TV, or maybe even listened to a radio or something like that, and we've got our results like that, or the next day we've looked at the newspaper or listened to the radio, etc., etc. Now we're moved into a different age. Lots of talk about sort of Twitter and things like that, people emailing each other, people texting each other, but using the internet rather than television to get their information. On here, obviously on the internet, you can have your pages up, you can have different tabs and windows open and that sort of thing, and you could be looking at several different sites while you're interacting with your friends. And I think that's something that's changed. Another thing that sort of brought this home to me in the way that this has changed, obviously being involved in this and getting involved with you people out there on YouTube, we do that in lots of different ways, by email, you know, the way that the sort of friendships in that, it sort of progresses, and you sort of get drawn into that whole way the internet takes over your life. And I've noticed it myself, it's sort of having a bigger and bigger influence and maybe taking up more time. Maybe some people try and draw away from that a little bit because they realise that, and some people, our sort of friends, relatives, family or something, probably think we're spending too much time here or in other ways as well. But one thing that brought it home to me and the way that it influences people was that when I was in America recently, as I'm sure you're well aware, with Gary and Mike, they had their laptops with them. As soon as we go into the hotel room, or as soon as we were within sort of Wi-Fi distance or something like that, out would come the laptops, not that they've ever turned off, and straight online they were looking at their different sort of Yahoo or whatever it was, YouTube obviously, Twitter via the internet, all those different things, and they were searching them out, checking them out, and spending a lot of time online. And it really brought that home to me. I'm not sort of criticising it, saying it sort of really brought it home to me as to how the influence of the internet is becoming more and more. and also the use of mobile phones. Our phones now, cell phones, call them what you will, have got the internet on them. That's becoming more and more into our lives, I think. And I think we've sort of reached that sort of bit of a tipping point now where it's really going to go over, and we're really going to sort of see this more and more, and people are going to be sort of dragged into this, kicking and screaming, some people, others a bit more willingly. But one of the other points was the Twitter thing. I mean, I've said before, probably have said that I wasn't interested in Twitter, I didn't see the point of it. And I didn't, but I sort of I sit corrected maybe, because I've started doing that quite a lot recently, partly through my sort of experiences at South Tube, etc., in the car, watching what Mike and Gary were doing and getting the messages through, thinking before that it was a bit silly maybe, but I think it's got over that now. It's something that I've sort of started to use, and use it quite a lot. If anyone's interested, I'm andymooseman there as well, so if you want to follow me, have a look at that. So I've sort of started doing that as well, and quite getting into it, and I've found that it's actually quite a good way of getting to know people a bit better, because you're sharing sort of bite-sized pieces of information, as you're probably aware of the way it works, 140 characters and that sort of thing. So getting into it in that way, and you sort of build up little bits, you know, those sort of point where you get little bits of information, and you can build up a bigger picture by sort of putting those bits all together into a big whole maybe. And so that's something that I've learned through that, so I'm using that quite a bit more. And along those sort of lines today, just messing about on Twitter, and saw that the one person who was the biggest, I think the most followers, I believe, was Barack Obama. So I thought, so that's another way that he's sort of getting involved with this. I can't imagine that he sits there reading all these tweets that people send up. So I thought, well, I know what, I'll follow Barack Obama. Why not? He doesn't post that many tweets, and just, you know, it's just a cool thing to do. Within a couple of minutes, I got an email saying, Barack Obama is now following you on Twitter. And I thought, wow, how cool is that? And I don't expect that he's going to be sitting there reading all my sort of tweets that I put out there. But the fact that he's out there, the fact that he's doing it, I must say, once again, shows the way that these things are changing, shows the way that certain people, maybe the younger generation or the middle-aged generation even, are getting involved in this, the way that it is sort of influencing their life. They're looking into the future and the way that this is going. And this sort of comes across to the way that all these sort of different types of interweaving sort of bits and pieces of information and how we keep in contact with each other is something I will be tackling in another video, actually, which I've thought about before, because we've all noticed that sort of YouTube has possibly been a bit quieter. Now, why is that? Well, I think it's because we're all doing lots of different things, but as I said, that's a wider subject and something that I will come on to in another video and sort of tackle it from a different angle maybe. But just wonder what your sort of feelings are about this, if you've noticed how you're being drawn into the way that the internet takes over your life in lots of different ways, lots of different sites. No, it's not just Twitter, it's not just YouTube, there's all those other social networking sites, Facebook, which I've never touched. Obviously there's all the MySpaces. We're using cell phones, mobile phones now, which keep us in contact. They're internet devices apart from just sort of phones as well, aren't they? So bear that in mind. Give us your thoughts. Are you happy about this? Is it something that you find that you're being drawn into without really wanting it? Do you find it intrusive? Are you being dragged into it? Maybe you'll find it just a bit all too much, because there's so much choice out there, isn't there, nowadays? And you think, oh, do I want to be on that site? Do I want to be on this site? And I'm finding that myself, which I may well talk about in the other video. Anyway, I'll leave it there, but as I said, I'd love to know your thoughts about this. And if Barack Obama decides to sort of follow me on YouTube and subscribe to YouTube, because I'm sure he's got a channel as well, that'd be pretty good, wouldn't it? Anyway, thanks for your time. I'll speak to you again soon. Goodbye.